All right, folks, welcome back to Oscars at a Glance 2018. We've gotten a few kind of interesting developments that have happened here in the Oscar race here, especially in the last month or so. So it's time to give a little update there and talk about a few new things. Now, first of all, let's recap the New York Film Festival. This happened, ended actually, I should say, back on Sunday the 15th. So we had the premiere film there was Last Flag Flying. That's the opening film. 71% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's definitely not the next Richard Linklater film like Boyhood that got, all those nominations and was at one time the frontrunner. But, and I did have a lot of faith in Steve Carell getting one of those nominations for supporting actor, but evidently he's kind of campaigning, I guess, in the lead category now, where he's actually going to be competing against himself for Battle of the Sexes, which, I don't know, maybe that's actually been pulled into the supporting category, but I saw that one. We'll get to that in a little bit, but he's definitely more of a supporting player in that film. Anyway, so that one, it's just kind of, everybody's all over the board on that one. Some people liked it, some people thought it was just okay, some people just didn't like it, so we'll see what that one does here. It's got a little ways to go before release here, actually, well, a couple weeks before its limited release, and then we'll see where it goes into wide release, if it even gets there. All right, next one, The Florida Project. This one has opened in theatrical release. It is limited still. I think it's still under 100 theaters at this rate, but 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, only a few bad reviews there. Everybody's talking about Willem Dafoe for supporting actor. I think that's a very good bet as far as if it's going to get nominated. Will he win? Well, we'll see. Everybody was thinking 2015, everybody was thinking at first Michael Keaton, then they were thinking Idris Elba, then they were thinking Sylvester Stallone, and, we ended up with somebody else there with... can't even think of the guy's name. Mark Rylance. There we go. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, this is definitely one early on I said it would get in. And now I think a lot of people are on board now for it getting into a lot of those good slots like picture, director, supporting actor, original screenplay, maybe even film editing's a possibility. Among a couple others, maybe. I mean, we'll see what happens there. But it's definitely one to consider. All right. We had a couple more here. The Meyerowitz stories. Now, this is one, we'll get into some of the Netflix factors here, too, because Mudbound is another one that's coming out on Netflix that was at the festival here. But the Meyerowitz stories, it's 93%. It is on Netflix now. I have not had a chance to see it yet, but I do plan to see it either this weekend or in the next coming weeks. But, and Noah Baumbach as a director, I run hot and cold with him. Like, I think he had, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was the last one he did with Ben Stiller. I think it was While We're Young or If We're Still Young, something like that. Couldn't even remember the title of the movie. It was the one he did with Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried, were the couple that he and I can't remember who the actress was, but yeah, that one I saw. I didn't really enjoy that one. I mean, there were a couple really cute scenes and a couple funny scenes, but the rest of it I just wasn't into. But then that same year he had Mistress America come out, and that was my favorite film of that year. So, yeah, I'm very interested. It's a great cast with Dustin Hoffman, Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller again, Emma Thompson, Elizabeth Marvel, among a couple others there. So that's one. And the trailers have looked like it's going to be a pretty entertaining, kind of farcical comedy film. So we'll see what happens with that one. But as far as the Netflix factor goes, we have to remember back to 2015 when Netflix had a big contender in Beasts of No Nation. And that one did end up on, I think it was my number 6 favorite film of that year. And it's one, I've only seen it once because it is kind of hard to revisit. And I think I tried once and I'm like, it's kind of a longer movie. And the subject matter is so tough, it's kind of hard to sit through that one more than once. But still, I do remember Idris Elba, I thought, was the performance of that year for the supporting actors category for sure. And I think the problem was that they released it in theaters and on Netflix at the same time, and when it was in the limited release, all those theater owners got really pissed off because they're like, why would somebody who has a Netflix subscription see the movie for free or whatever, because everybody watches more than one thing on Netflix a month, of course, so whatever the monthly subscription is, when you divide that up by how many shows you watch, basically, if you watch a lot of shows, it's going to be for next to nothing, but still, it doesn't matter. Why would you see it in a theater and pay, for some of these independent theaters, they'll charge a little more than some of your big corporate theaters. Why would they, and we'll just say for an example here, $12. Why would they pay $12 to come to my theater and then pay another $20 for popcorn and drinks and then see the movie when they could do all that at home for free? And and I get that point, of course. And then that's one thing, and I think the Academy heard about that, and it was a big story that year. Everybody was kind of focused on that, and they just didn't really take to it. The Academy didn't. But at the same time, it was kind of deceiving to think he was going to get in because he had won the SAG. Well, the SAG win was after he had gotten left off the nominees list, but he won at SAG. His film, Beast of No Nation, was one of the best ensemble casts of that year in that category. And it also, I believe, got the Globe nomination, too. I might be wrong about that. But you have to remember, too, that those two award ceremonies, especially SAG, they have been, a lot of television voters there as well. They each have, television categories as well. And as everybody knows, it's been pretty much since 2013 when House of Cards came out, and there were a couple others that came later. But a lot of those shows on Netflix and eventually Hulu and Amazon and all the other ones here now. I mean, how many streaming services do we have now? Back then it was just Netflix, but now it's just taken off. It's pretty crazy. But still, it's like they're used to getting, maybe 3 or 4 of their nominees in each, category being from a streaming service. And it's really the cable channels and the basic cable channels shows that are really struggling now, instead of vice versa. At first, it was maybe one streaming service show would get in for the first year or two. And then after they were used to it, it was like, bam, everything was streaming for the most part. And I just don't know if the Oscars are going to come over that hurdle this year. Because again, and true, back in 2015, that was before these big shifts in the voting bases happened. So maybe some of the younger voters in there, of course, I would assume a lot of them do have Netflix and Amazon, etc. subscriptions. And, they might be more open to possibly nominating something like this. And as far as I know, it is meeting the requirements by playing in both New York and LA, or at least one of the two. At least with Meyerowitz Stories, I think that's the case. I haven't read, it's not open to any weekend box office numbers by any means, not that I've seen at least. But for the most part, it looks like they're doing what they can to qualify it to get into the race there. And, another example was last year we had Manchester by the Sea from Amazon. It was also, released theatrically with Roadside Attractions, and I think there were a couple other sub-companies there. But what they did was really smart. They put out the movie in theaters first and limited release, and then eventually to a moderate and eventually wide release. And they let it play for, I think it was 4 months, over the course of 4 months, before they put it on Amazon for everybody to see who had the subscription. So that was very, very clever. I think it almost made, what was it, like 50 or 60 million worldwide? It did very, very well in the theater. And it was kind of, I think that the common consumer did not know that it was going to come onto Amazon so quickly. So then those who did have subscriptions and who saw it in the theater were like, oh, now it's on Amazon Stream, okay. And then they saw it again or saw it multiple times, So I think that's the way, if Netflix is serious about these films, they should follow that Amazon model 100%. And they, in that case, they should have released Meyerowitz Stories. If they were keeping their October streaming date, they should have released that last month. Mudbound should come out at the end of this month, and so on and so forth, to line up all your releases. But of course, it's too late for that. Now, again, it's gonna be a question mark, I think, through this whole race this year, because we could definitely see something like Meyerowitz Stories or Mudbound do very well in their respective categories at the Golden Globes, at SAG, and they could, get in, maybe 3 or 4 nominations each. Depends on, how well they do and how well their competition is. Because I think it's not like this year there's a lot of theatrically released films that are doing poorly, and it's just these two. I mean, there's definitely going to be other ones. So, yeah, I think as soon as, if for a theoretical example here, let's say Mudbound gets 5 nominations at the Globes, Meyerowitz Stories gets 4. Again, just a theoretical example here. Let's say they both do very well. I don't think that you automatically then put in the same number of nominations or even more at the Oscars. I just don't know. So at the moment, I'm not going to bet on them. And again, until I see really some stronger evidence to point that this is going to be a different case than what happened with Beasts of No Nation, then I'm sorry, but I'm going to discount them for now. All right, so then Call Me By Your Name was another one, and this, I think, I am still, I don't know. As far as my early bid of who's going to win Best Picture, I still have this one in the number 1 slot. because it does look like it has all the key factors here. It's got the independent vibe. It's got a homosexual story. It's a small budget film. It's a foreign director. They love their foreign directors lately. They've got a good cast and very good critical reception. Comes out in November. So it's got a lot of factors going for it that, some recent examples of Best Picture winners have really, really linked up here. At the same time, I do think something like Shape of Water, which was not at the Festival of New York, that one is, those are kind of shifting 1 and 2 for me. Both of them look like they're going to be outstanding. Okay, we also had Wonderstruck. This is Todd Haynes' new film. I did see a trailer for this, and it was my introduction to it, and I'm like, oh, okay, it looks like a really kind of neat story, but 69% for that one for Rotten Tomatoes score right now. I think it comes out later this month or early next month. I don't know. But we'll see how that one does. Lady Bird also was at the festival. This one of the few films to still have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Kind of curious, because Saoirse Ronan's last nomination was for Brooklyn, which was at 100% through the, Sundance, and I think it was a couple, I think it was at, I can't even remember the festivals now, but it was at more than one festival last year, 2015 as well, and retained that 100% rating until I think right before it got into its limited release in November. And now Lady Bird looks like it's going to be on that same platform, and isn't it the same distributor too? Let's see, because that was Fox Searchlight was that one. No, this is A24. Okay. But A24, we discounted them last year for damn sure, and the year before for some of the smaller categories. So, yeah, I mean, they're very smart campaigners. That's a reason why I think something like Florida Project is going to get better reception than other people. I'm starting to consider The Disaster Artist might be a very, very sneaky dark horse Best Picture contender that could actually happen. We'll see what happens over the next few months here, but A24 has been on fire the last couple of years. We'll see if it holds up. We already mentioned, Mudbound is at 98%. Again, there was a trailer that came out for this. I saw it. It does look like it will be a very, very entertaining film to watch. Maybe some dark subject matter there, but definitely something. I think it's, Carey Mulligan, I think, is maybe going to be a potential nominee for Best Actress, but it's going to be a very, very crowded year. Okay, the closing film was the new Woody Allen film, Wonder Wheel. And this one is split right down the middle at 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. And basically the big news out of this is it's another winner for Kate Winslet, another winning performance. The script evidently is not very strong. Woody's direction is not very strong. The movie around Kate Winslet is not very strong. But she basically gets all the praise from what reviews I've read. So, again, it's a very, very, very fluid race. I think. Well, what could be a fluid race? It's not we're not getting into early nominations yet. But definitely, there's going to be a lot of competition and a lot of different actresses vying. A lot of them have real life characters. A lot of them have very, very competitive studios behind them, or directors who have gotten other girls of their same caliber and of their same performance nominated before. So it is going to be a very, very interesting time here. And last year, as you might recall, also for Best Actress, was very hard to get it dwindled down to 5 nominees. And I think we're going to be in that same boat this year. So yeah, that's at least from what I got here from the New York Film Festival. Okay, a couple other things here. The Gotham Film Awards were nominated, or the nominations, I should say, were announced just a couple days ago here. So we'll go through those now. So for Best Feature there, and remember these are independent films only. You've got Call Me by Your Name, The Florida Project, Get Out, Good Time, and I, Tonya. The only one I've seen is Get Out, of course, which is still my favorite film of the year. Absolutely, very. I don't know if I can describe it even. It's my feelings for it. I think it's a groundbreaking film, and definitely, I think Jordan Peele is going to be the director to remember this year for their first film. So, yes, I definitely think that Florida Project and Call Me by Your Name are going to be in the Best Picture race. Again, Get Out is, I think it's one of the year's best, but I don't know if the Academy will go for it. It's been a while since they've gone down the horror route. I know it does have comedic elements to it, but comedy horror films are some of the like lowest performers I think of at the Academy. Outside sometimes some action movies get in too, but we really haven't seen a pure action movie get in other than Mad Max. I think since what The Fugitive was the last one before that. Uh, to my knowledge, yeah, I mean, unless you call like Lord of the Rings action movies, but they're not really. Um, anyway, so I, Tonya was kind of a surprise there. I think it is still at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, but I didn't think it would get in over something like The Disaster Artist, something like what are the other ones they really liked here? They really liked Columbus. They really liked Lady Bird. I'm surprised those didn't get one of the 5 slots. Okay, so we'll go on here. So if you don't know, the Gotham Awards do not have supporting categories. They just have Best Actor in any role in the movie and Best Actress in any role in the movie. So they actually, and usually they only have 5 nominees. There must have been a tie this year for Best Actor to get a 6th nomination in there. So they are Willem Dafoe for Florida Project, James Franco for The Disaster Artist, Daniel Kaluuya for Get Out, Robert Pattinson, Good Time, Adam Sandler for The Meyerowitz Stories, and the late Harry Dean Stanton for Lucky. And I'll tell you, the only one I think of these that, and again, I've only seen Get Out, and I haven't seen any of the others yet, so the only one to me that looks like it doesn't fit is the Daniel Kaluuya one. And don't get me wrong, he was very good in the movie, but to name him one of the 6 best, or in this, what would normally be 5 best, I don't know. But, above somebody like Kumail Nanjiani in The Big Sick, who I think, he'll score a Best Actor nomination at the Globes for sure. Maybe even a screenplay nomination, both at the Globes and possibly at the Oscars too. But I think his performance is kind of underrated in that. I mean, he gets a lot of the great comedic lines. Obviously, his character's got a really big heart, and it's a very very likable character. But then he's also got that great moment where he's trying to do his stand-up act right when they say that Emily, his ex-girlfriend, is getting worse and could possibly has to move out of her hospital. There's a part where he's trying to do a stand-up act, and he goes out there trying to do the act. But all he does is just end up talking about her, and it really, the audience is there to laugh, and you're basically telling this really sad story. So, I mean, just a moment like that where it's just pretty much a dramatic moment there, I thought he nailed it. So, it's kind of a shame that he didn't get nominated for that, but yeah, we'll see if somebody like Daniel Kaluuya can get into a few other slots here, but I don't know. Best Actor looks like it's going to be competitive too. Because, of course, we don't have... Gary Oldman is another one, of course, we got to consider. We'll get into the other ones as well here, but... And, of course, Willem Dafoe is going to be in the supporting category. Okay, for the Best Actress nominees here, we have Melanie Linsky for I Don't Feel at Home in the World Anymore, Haley Lou Richardson for Columbus, Margot Robbie for I, Tonya, Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird, and Lois Smith for Marjorie Prime. Haven't heard of that one. Yeah, I think these 5, at least for these independent kind of films, yeah, I think that's a good list. Again, having not seen any of them, it's definitely, and we have to remember too, the Gotham Awards are not always right. Like, if we look back here, before we get to the other nominees here, when we look at, like, their Best Picture nominations last year, only 2 of them got into the Best Picture race. That was Moonlight and Manchester. For Best Actor, they had, 2 get in, Jeff Bridges and Casey Affleck. That's, if you include the supporting categories, that's 2 out of 10. For Best Actress, they only had, they had 3. They had Elle, Loving, and Jackie, so that's 3 there. Out of the 10 screenplay races, they had 3 with Moonlight, Hell or High Water, and Manchester by the Sea. So it's not always going to be a 100% thing. And then actually, let's go back to 2015 as well. For their Best Picture nominees, Spotlight won here, and it was the only one, of course, to get nominated at the Oscars. For the acting races, let's see, for Best Actor, none of them. For Best Actress, we had 2. That was it. Then for the screenplay race, we had 2, Spotlight and Carol. So that's 2 out of 10 there. So yeah, I mean, they don't always get a lot of these races 100% correct. We have to remember that. So, especially at this really, really early stage, I think this is actually the first one outside of festival awards to really hold a ceremony like this. We'll see what Critics' Choice does this year, because they, stupidly last year, they announced their nominations the first week of December, had the awards ceremony like less than 2 weeks later, And by that point, anything they were giving out for the most part didn't matter. But and, like, some of them actually did end up right. Like we had, God, I can't remember who won. Casey Affleck won for Best Actor. That happened at the Oscars as well. I think they gave Natalie Portman Best Actress. That didn't end up panning out. And they gave La La Land like Best Picture, Director, which director worked out, but picture didn't. And I think they gave it like a lot of them original screenplay. They gave it all sorts of different stuff. So yeah, some of them, if they're too early, they end up just not really mattering. And then when you look at them, later or years down the road, even, or whatever, you look back at them, you're like, huh, they were so wrong. So sometimes that happens. All right, and for the screenplay races this year, we had The Big Sick, Brad Status, Call Me by Your Name, Columbus, Get Out, and Lady Bird. So I've only seen 2 of those, The Big Sick and Get Out. But Brad Status is one. It's playing in a limited theater. I'll see if I can catch that one. I might not be able to. But I remember the previews for that. I don't know. Just they didn't really catch me, so I don't know. And I don't think there's really going to be a huge uprising for that movie to get much traction. I haven't heard way too much. I mean, obviously a lot of critics like it. It did well in its limited run, but it's just not really catching fire. So we'll see what happens there going forward. Okay, so that's those couple things there. Now, before we continue, there's a couple, 3 major developments I can think of here. The first one, we have the Denzel movie coming up, Roman Israel Esquire. That one premiered, which one was it? The Telluride? No, it wasn't Telluride. Which one was it? TIFF, that's right. It was at Toronto. And when it was, we've heard since then that pretty much when it got to its screening time, it had pretty much only been like completed and finished editing and all that like maybe a day before. Like they waited, it was up to the last minute to get that one ready just for a screening at the ceremony or at the festival there. And since then, they have gone back and they've actually trimmed it down and kind of changed some things around. So we'll see what happens with that one. But I remember off the festival reviews, everybody was praising. They said Denzel will probably get his 9th nomination now. He'll enjoy all the awards and all the good buzz from the movie. Everything else is kind of like okay or not going to get nominated. So we'll see. That might change some things up for sure as we get later into the race. The second thing is The Current War, which was another Toronto film. That one has now pulled out, and I think it's scheduled to come out in sometime early 2018, so that one's not going to be considered anymore for this year. And, of course, the big thing we got to talk about here is all the stuff that's happened with Harvey Weinstein and the Weinstein Company. So, and I've spoken about this. I have the Plagman Rules podcast going strong here. Whatever. I have it going on. And I mentioned it, I think it was a week or so ago, or not long after it happened. And yeah, I think I stick by it. I say, Harvey Weinstein, when you look at what he has done as a producer in the industry, he's really the one responsible for making independent films in the late and early 90s and foreign films in the early and late 90s. If they were a success or a moderate success or a big success, he pretty much put a stamp on it and really helped bring those films into the pop culture and into the big theaters so that everybody could see them, and I think he's also launched a lot of careers, especially when you look at it like Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Gwyneth Paltrow, arguably, there's a few other ones, of course, we could be here all day listing all of them, but, he's launched a lot of careers both in front of and behind the camera there. And there had been rumors through the years that, he was doing a couple things on the side that weren't really very nice. And, of course, all the allegations and everything that have come out since then. And, frankly, I think they're all true. I mean, I don't question any of them. I don't think anybody would be making this up. And I personally, and I think I've said this earlier, so I'll just kind of make it shorter this time, but I separate what a person does in front of the camera, or in this case, behind the camera, and what they do in their personal lives. What they do in their personal lives and who that person is, I separate from their work. So, for example, like Mel Gibson is another one. Like Hacksaw Ridge last year, I thought was one of the 5 best directed films of the year. It was one of the best films of the year as well. And the fact that Mel Gibson, he's gotten into a lot of trouble before, through the years, all that stuff I set aside. And when the movie starts, I'm like, okay, again, I just have one expectation when I see a movie, and that is don't suck. That's the only expectation I go in with. I don't have a checklist. I don't have anything else. I just say don't suck. Don't give me a bad time at the movies here. And Mel Gibson, as far as directing wise, to my memory, has never given me a bad experience like that. So again, I set all that stuff aside. Now, sure, for what he's done in his personal life, yeah, he's crazy. He's weird, and probably should be in jail. And I think the same goes for Harvey Weinstein. He's crazy, he's weird, and he should be in jail. But that's his personal life. But for the work he's done, it's definitely something that you have to acknowledge. I mean, sure, everything that happened, but at the same time, Hollywood, I think, has been better off for his work. Not so much for his personal life, not so much for his practices and all that stuff. Obviously, that stuff can get out of here. But as far as his work, it's definitely something I think we need to remember while all this stuff is going on. Now, another thing, too, is, and I don't think, maybe like of the people who are really championing for Harvey to get get everything that he is justly due, in my opinion as well. Maybe 1 or 2% of them are going as far as saying now every film he has made should also be tossed aside. That I strongly, strongly disagree with, for many reasons, and probably the foremost one being a lot of the films that have been distributed or produced by the Harvey Weinstein company, or by the Weinstein Company, I should say. A lot of them are great. Like a lot of Tarantino's latest works, or actually most of his works, have been distributed through them and produced by them. As far as I'm concerned, Tarantino's one of the best directors working today. Even one from this year, and it's still one of my 3 best films of the year, and that's Wind River. And at least in this stage of the race, it's not getting a lot of traction, which I think is a shame. I do think it is one of the best films of the year and should be recognized as such. But then again, that's with me having not seen a lot of the films I'm predicting to get nominated for Best Picture. So, yeah, I definitely think, yes, sure, Harvey Weinstein should be criticized, should be, everything bad that's going to happen to him. He did bad things, and if you do them, you should be caught for it, you should be punished for it. That's, bottom line, no quarter on that. But don't go after his films. Don't go after his work behind the camera. Because his work behind the camera should be left alone and should be respected, because a lot of his work behind the camera was great. And as you might recall, he was a recipient of the Best Picture of the Year award for Shakespeare in Love, which, I know we get into the argument of Saving Private Ryan and everything, but it was still a good film, a really great film, and it's definitely one that we should remember. So, yeah, just to, kind of bring that up, but still, and I think as we get into things, the conversation will continue to happen as far as, do these films deserve to be tossed aside because of their distributor? In this case, Wind River was not produced, and developed by the Weinstein Company. They only picked up the rights to it and distributed it. In that case, it is totally unfair to hold that up to him and to say, because his company's name is on it, it should be disqualified and stuff like that. Bullshit. No, that's not fair. That is not fair at all. So, yeah, that's my feelings on that. Now, obviously, if the film is already on a trajectory to not get too many nominations, then I guess that only, possibly could sink it into obscurity as far as how it's going to do in this race. But I just think it's not fair if anybody goes and targets that. That's separate. Again, I separate all that stuff. So, yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get going here with the films that I believe are going to be nominated for Best Picture. All right, so let's start with the 10 films. Again, they go anywhere from 5 to 10 every year. So the up to 10 films that I believe are going to be nominated this year for Best Picture, and these are just listed here in the order of what I think is going to be nominated, most to least in that case. Okay. So, number 1 would be Call Me By Your Name, The Shape of Water, number 2, The Post, with Steven Spielberg, number 3, Florida Project, number 4, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri at number 5, Darkest Hour, number 6, Lady Bird, number 7. I still have Last Flag Flying in there at number 8. There might be a couple other ones I'll be considering here. Dunkirk at number 9, and Only the Brave at number 10. This is one, if I want to explain myself on a couple of these, Only the Brave is one. It's very cool. If you've been watching the podcast, you'll know that I saw this one a week early, just through a local theater that was showing it, and they had it was a paid screening for it. It wasn't a free screening or anything, but I got to see it early, and man, this movie knocked me on my ass. It is phenomenal. I think it's Joseph Kosinski's the director, who's never impressed me before. He's made a masterpiece here. It is one of the 3 best films of the year. It's actually number 3 if we're getting down to the numbers and everything. And it's got a terrific cast. I think Jennifer Connelly will be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. The screenplay, it might even get in for Adapted Screenplay. When we get to Adapted Screenplay here in a few minutes, that race is starting to really look like it's going to be dull. Like there's a couple slots here and there that that need to be filled. So that's one, and especially, I kind of made this remark here earlier, but after everything that's happened here in the last 2 years, as far as the frontrunner to win Best Picture, like 2015, we had Spotlight out front early, and then, it got challenged a little bit, like Joy I had as the eventual winner. That didn't even get nominated, thank God. And then we had Spotlight take over, and I was predicting Spotlight for like a week. And then, sorry, it was The Revenant. I picked up on The Revenant for like a week, and then I went to Spotlight for the first time. I think that was by mid-December. And then shortly after that, The Revenant picked up and won at the Globes, won at BAFTA eventually, won the DGA, and I was like, damn, yep, I'm going. And then I switched over to The Revenant. It became the front runner up to Oscar night, and then Spotlight comes back and wins. And it was a competitive race. I mean, Spotlight did have its lovers out there for sure. And for me personally, I thought Spotlight was a better movie. So it was a struggle to figure out which one was going to win, and by the end, it definitely looked like it was going to be a 51-49 situation as far as which one has the advantage. And, of course, last year, when it was La La Land, La La Land, La La Land, all the way through, including winning not all, but a lot, like probably 85% of the precursors, and winning, as much as it could, and then Moonlight wins, And, there was, I've kind of got into that before, but I do think race did play a factor into that. And I do think that A24, the distributor, and their campaigning played into that as well. So there's definitely those elements there. And plus, yeah, I mean, I've kind of accepted it now, but I do think that there was kind of a overpraising of La La Land effect that could have happened there. When it did land 14 nominations, when it did win all 7 of its awards at the Golden Globes, for those who didn't see it up to that point, especially the Globes' 7 wins, which in that case, I did see it that same weekend. I saw it actually the day before the Globes, so I was, I guess I can't include myself in that crowd, because I think there were a lot of people who saw it after that. When was that? Mid-January or so? And they saw it then, and then they said, this film won 7 Golden Globes? I mean, is it really that good? And, arguably, yeah, when your expectations are set that high, then, yeah, maybe it will disappoint you. And I think that's definitely what happened with La La Land there. So, it's definitely something to consider there. So, yeah, they're 0 for 2 as far as these, a lot of these prognosticators, including myself, who have gotten Best Picture wrong 2 years in a row now. So it's starting to I'm starting to think, you know what? It's time to just go out there, predict anything, because anything could happen now, If Moonlight can trample La La Land after the number of precursors it had won, yeah, it's going to be crazy, crazy races from here on out if that's going to be the same repeating factor every year going forward. Let's see, I kind of got into it last time, but Dunkirk I have so low at number 9 when a lot of sites still have it as the number 1 contender here. Again, it comes down to, we've had over the years now, Best Director and Best Picture have split more often now, I think, in the last 10 years than they've agreed. And and what we've really seen come up, again, probably in the last 10 years, probably all but one or two times, your Best Picture winner also takes screenplay, whatever its screenplay category is. We saw that with Spotlight, saw that with Moonlight, saw that with Birdman, saw it with 12 Years a Slave, saw it with Argo. The Artist is the only exception, otherwise King's Speech, Hurt Locker, Slumdog Millionaire, No Country for Old Men, The Departed, Crash. It's gone on and on. Probably, yeah, if we go back even further, it's a very, very common thing for your Best Picture winner to win its screenplay as well. I can tell you for a damn fact that Dunkirk is not going to win original screenplay. And I don't think it's actually in the top 10 competitors for original screenplay, because that category is so packed this year. So many original screenplays this year. I don't think it's going to get anywhere close to a nomination unless, and it's extraordinary circumstances are going to have to happen. But in order to win Best Picture, you've got to win that screenplay award too. I think definitely that's what hurt The Revenant. And with the competition with La La Land, there's other factors, of course, but that was not likely to win original screenplay as well. So, and musicals also do rarely win that screenplay award. So, we've seen, a couple other exceptions there, like The Artist. That was one where, yeah, it's a silent movie, so the script is not going to be as, as exciting, say, as a couple other ones. And plus, it was Woody Allen with Midnight in Paris, arguably his best film in 3 decades, arguably. So that was one. Plus, it had won every other precursor, and The Artist had lost every other precursor as far as that screenplay award. So it wasn't that big a surprise. So yeah, that's one reason why I have it so low. I do have it in just in general because obviously some people have put it so high. It's like, well, yeah, at the same time, it is Warner Brothers who, Mad Max got in a couple of years ago. So sometimes these kind of, not say Dunkirk is an all-out action movie the way Mad Max was, but, the Academy does kind of like to do a couple of those every once in a while. So that's definitely one to consider there. Again, it's every once in a while. It's not consistent. It's not every year. But it's also Christopher Nolan, and they do like him. So that's another one. Yeah, again, Last Flag Flying, I'm trying to think if I want to keep that one in. If not, if I'm going down the list here of other films that are coming out here soon or have been released that could take up that slot, I'm not seeing a strong enough contender. Get Out is probably one that a lot of people are mentioning. Yeah, it came out in February. That hurts it. But at the same time, it is still critically one of the best received films of the year, critically speaking. Broke all sorts of records at the box office and everything. Phantom Thread, the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, I did have that one predicted for a while, but we'll see about that one. I don't know. We haven't seen any trailers for that. I don't know if there's even been a picture released of on set or anything. But I get the same goes for The Post as well. That one hasn't had a trailer yet. I'm surprised. They should have a trailer for that one out soon if they're going to make that December release date. If not, then they might end up pushing that one. So if that one ends up getting pushed, then yeah, we could have room for something like Get Out or Phantom Thread. We'll see. Like I said, with the Netflix thing, something like Mudbound or Meyerowitz Stories could play a contender there, but it would have to be, a lot of these other films I think would have to fall off. Let's see here. Downsizing was one at one point, but I think a lot of the buzz on that one has gone soft. Mother, I saw that one. I think it's one of the better films of the year, but I'm a weirdo, I guess, for having that opinion. And, we have seen before some movies get some of those low Rotten Tomatoes scores, or in this case it was only 60%, but audiences hated it. We have seen stuff like, what was the Tom Hanks one recently? The 9/11 one. I can't remember it now. Extremely Loud, Incredibly Close. Yeah, that one, critics hated it. It didn't have all that great a reception to the box office, but it still made it in for Best Picture. So we'll see there. And something like I, Tonya actually could be something to start considering now that it did pick up the Gotham Award nomination there. But yeah, otherwise, there's a couple other ones that have come through here recently, like Suburbicon. That one hasn't opened yet, but, again, a lot of the critical reviews crushed it. The Disaster Artist could be, again, kind of a dark horse contender. I do have Only the Brave in, pretty much just because I've seen it, and it's, it really impressed me, so that one, it is a long shot at this rate. It is very much a dark horse, but I just had to throw it in just to screw with the whole race. So At this rate, I'm going to keep it in, Last Flag Flying, but that's kind of just because it's still early and I'm not 100% sure on everything yet. Lady Bird #7, yeah, I do think that will get in. Greta Gerwig has not been nominated before, to my knowledge. And Best Director, if we're going to have a female director nominated this year, because I know it's, in the news recently, of course, with Patty Jenkins directing Wonder Woman and so on and so forth. And plus now we've gotten, all the stuff for an all-female Marvel Cinematic Universe film. We'll see what pans out there. But if they're going to nominate any female director this year, I do think Greta Gerwig has a much better chance with this than Patty Jenkins has. I would say for those who are betting on that, don't set your expectations too high. Darkest Hour, I think that is a very safe contender here. Most of the critics have really liked it. Of course, Gary Oldman will likely become the frontrunner for Best Actor when we enter November. Again, if you're new here, I do not actually say you're a frontrunner until we get to November, unless I'm stupid, like I did with Judi Dench earlier this year. And look how that's going to turn out. So yeah. For me, I don't officially say frontrunner until we get to November. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. I'm putting this one so high because it did win the Audience Award at TIFF, and it's also one of the better critically reviewed movies of all the festival circuits here. Frances McDormand looks like she's a very likely contender for Best Actress. Sam Rockwell might get his first nod for Supporting Actor. Even the director, whose name, we'll get to it in a little bit here, but he has not been nominated to my knowledge either. Definitely not for director. He might have gotten in for a screenplay once, years ago, but I wouldn't remember it right now. And the trailers look like it'll be, it will be, to my knowledge, entering in as a comedy when we get to the Globes. I'll mention the Globes here a little bit too later, because there's a couple interesting things to talk about at this rate. But yeah, for now, it looks like one that could be kind of a sly, kind of dark-humored film. It kind of reminds me a little bit, just from the trailers at least, of The Big Short from a couple years ago. How it was a comedy, but it was kind of a dark comedy. There were dramatic moments in it. This definitely looks like it's going to be in that same thing, where, yeah, you're laughing because Frances McDormand is doing some pretty ridiculous stuff, like in the trailer where she knees a boy in the groin and then knees a girl in the vagina. Oh my God. We'll see what happens, because it does look like a movie that I would totally love to watch. And critically, yeah, pretty much everybody's loved it. So, it definitely looks like a very interesting one. So that's why I have it so high. And then Florida Project, I'm a believer in this movie. I'm a believer in A24. And Willem Dafoe, I think, yeah, again, he will become a frontrunner for supporting actor in a couple weeks here. So, yeah, I'm calling that one early. Again, The Post, always bet on Spielberg when it comes to the Oscars, even with something like Bridge of Spies, which we had questions about a couple years ago. That got in. No, really no qualms with that one. Yeah, and then Shape of Water and Call Me by Your Name again. I'm going back and forth with these two as far as which one's going to win, but it's at this early stage, those two are very much in a tight position there. Okay, for Best Director, I do have Guillermo del Toro out front for Shape of Water. Again, I'm following that same kind of structure of director and picture being split, going to two different films. Luca Guadagnino for Call Me by Your Name, if I'm pronouncing his name right. Have him in second place. I have Sean Baker in third place for Florida Project. Again, I'm a believer in this movie. Steven Spielberg for The Post. In fourth place, I do have Christopher Nolan getting in fifth place for Dunkirk. I might push him up a little bit here because kind of reminiscent, of The Revenant from a couple years ago. Yeah, in retrospect, yeah, it's easy to see why not too many people were naming it the best film of the year. But as far as directorial achievements, yeah, it was clear that The Revenant was going to be, probably, higher than Spotlight and a couple other ones that year. Now, again, we have to see the movies. But for now, yeah, I know a lot of people are very, very high-horsed on Christopher Nolan winning this. And, at this early stage, I don't blame you. Because even though I was not as big a fan of Dunkirk as a lot of other people were, I thought it was a good movie. I can't call it anything better than that. But as far as his directorial job, I think it's one of his better directed movies, for sure. Maybe not his best written work, his best edited work, or anything like that, even though I actually do have Dunkirk winning editing at this point. Because, again, one of my big complaints there was, in the movie, the style that it's broken into, it took me quite a while to get into the flow of the movie, like the first probably 45 minutes. to get into the flow of what the movie is and what it's doing, because I was kind of lost for a while there for what they were doing. So, I think that, as long as we're not doing the auteur thing, which sometimes happens in these races, but that could hurt him in this, for sure. Okay, now for the other potential directors, definitely we have to consider Joe Wright for Darkest Hour. Martin McDonagh, that's the director's name, for Three Billboards. Greta Gerwig, again, Lady Bird. She could be a dark horse contender here to get in, actually. Paul Thomas Anderson, Jordan Peele, even somebody like Denis Villeneuve for Blade Runner 2049, which at this rate, I know some people are, again, kind of really high on expectations of it getting a Best Picture nomination, supporting actor for Harrison Ford, and a couple other things here and there. Now, cinematography, absolutely. I think that's going to win. At this early stage, I have no qualms saying that will become a front-runner for Best Cinematography for Roger Deakins. Long overdue for an Oscar. And I think it will happen. But for the moment, and of course Denis was nominated last year for Arrival, the movie, we don't always have to consider box office, but, as far as the Oscars go, sometimes they take money into consideration, and if your movie is losing a lot of money, which Blade Runner 2049 might end up doing, of course it's not done playing yet, and it hasn't opened in every market yet, to my knowledge, so it's looking like it will lose $100 million plus or so for the studios involved, which always spreads bad news through Hollywood, which means some of the voters also hear about that, or a lot of them do, and usually puts a negative effect on them. So that's one to consider. Also, sci-fi films, they don't always go for them. Of course, Arrival is an exception. The Martian is an exception. A couple other ones there recently. They like Star Wars, Force Awakens, quite a bit. So, not every sci-fi film, like Gravity, for example, couldn't go all the way for Best Picture. I think a lot of people said just because it's a sci-fi film. So I think that could hurt it for sure, especially if we get into a really complicated and really fluid Best Director race, which could happen this year. And I know personally for me, Guillermo del Toro is a director who I think is of that Oscar, kind of reminiscent of Guillermo, or sorry, not Guillermo, sorry, if the guy who directed The Revenant. God damn it, what's his name? Alejandro Iñárritu. There we go. Somebody like him, by the time he got up for like Birdman and stuff, it was like, this guy's, he's done some work before that we haven't really liked, and Guillermo for sure has had some films like Pacific Rim that some people just outright hated. But he's directed such good work before that he's a worthy winner. And then, of course, as we've mentioned here, foreign directors, they love foreign directors as of late. Damien Chazelle, and this is a fact I'm surprised not many people are bringing up, more so, and that is that Damien Chazelle is the first American director to win that category in 7 years. Because think back to it. Okay, 2015 and 2014 was Iñárritu. Then we had Alfonso Cuarón for Gravity. Then we had Ang Lee, Life of Pi, whatever the hell that guy's name is, Michel Hazanavicius, or whatever his name is, from The Artist. Then you had Tom Hooper, who's a British director for The King's Speech. And then you get to Catherine Bigelow, who was the last one there. And then before that, you even had Danny Boyle, who was a Brit. So, they really like their foreign directors, which is why I think somebody like Luca and somebody like Guillermo very much have an advantage here. And sure, Christopher Nolan is British, too, so, consider that. But they, especially of late, they really like their foreign directors. Okay, let's get into the Best Actor race. At this rate, I still have Gary Oldman. Yeah, I think he will become frontrunner status here very shortly. Okay, then we have Timothée Chalamet, for Call Me By Your Name in second place. Daniel Day-Lewis for Phantom Thread in third. Jake Gyllenhaal for Stronger in fourth place. And Denzel Washington for Roman J. Israel in fifth place. Now, I have seen Stronger. I definitely think it's a great movie. And Jake Gyllenhaal delivers what could arguably be one of his best, if not his best performance in this movie. And he gets a lot of complicated scenes and a lot of complicated character moments to deal with. And I think definitely it was a wise choice by David Gordon Green, the director, to show more than one side of his character, which is he's not just a blanket statement of a hero. He had his dark side. And he had some moments that maybe he's not very proud of. Especially when he's dealing with his girlfriend, Tatiana Maslany, who's also terrific in the movie. Anyway, but my big thing as far as if he's going to go all the way to win, the movie came out in September, and it's pretty rare for a movie to come out that early and win. We've seen, in the past few years here, a lot of the movies opened up in November, October, December, a couple of the later months. Like last year it was Denzel versus Casey Affleck. They, came out one in November, the other one in December. Then 2015, oh hell, who won? Leo for The Revenant, that was a December release. Eddie Redmayne for Theory of Everything, that was a November release. McConaughey for Dallas Buyers Club was November. Lincoln, Daniel Day-Lewis, that was a November release. We've seen it. It's always that, in the last couple months there, or maybe October. I think it was, God, do I have to go back to Forrest Whitaker for that one? For the last October? Maybe. But yeah, we've seen of late, they really like the acting races, especially the winners, are in the last couple months there. So that's my concern as far as that. And then also, it's kind of a positive, and it could be a negative too, if he's going to get in at all. Well, first of all, one strength you can put into him getting in is that, arguably his work in something like Nightcrawler, and for me personally, Nocturnal Animals, which I thought he was very underrated, very great performance there. He's had a lot of strong performances here over the last few years, and he has not been recognized for it, so it's time to recognize him. I know that's a big thing that a lot of people are saying, and yeah, I think will help him. But also, since he did not get nominated for those, it could hurt him because it's, it could be a thing of, well, he's just not on their radar. Yeah, and then with Denzel in Roman J. Israel there, again, since it is kind of being recut recently, we'll see if that helps him or if that hurts him. But we'll see there. As far as the other potential nominees here, we always have to acknowledge Tom Hanks. He's supposedly going lead for The Post. But just from the plot description we've got, again, we haven't got a trailer, we haven't got even a poster or an still image from the movie, except maybe one behind-the-scenes one that was just Spielberg standing there, maybe, if I'm even remembering it right. But, yeah, I think he's playing Ben Bradley. So we'll see. That to me, at least from what the plot description says, maybe he's safer playing in that supporting category. But who knows? But anyways, so he's won, but of course it's been so long since he's been nominated, and many great performances here in the last few years. Again, he's been overlooked for, so we'll see there. Kind of an early bet. A lot of people are saying Hugh Jackman for The Greatest Showman. That's one I think will really perform at the Globes, but it's going to be a tough one to see him get in here, especially, with all the competition coming up here. James Franco, The Disaster Artist. Again, if A24 works their magic, he could sneak into one of these slots. Andrew Garfield getting a lot of great reviews for Breathe. I know the movie itself was not getting all that great reviews, and I think it opens up, is it this weekend or next week, or the previous weekend? I can't remember. Maybe it already opened. But we'll see how it does at the box office, too. But we'll see about that one. Another one, personally, one I would love to see happen, is Jeremy Renner for Wind River. He gives, arguably, again, one of his best performances of his career in that film. He is phenomenal. Yeah, and I think it's definitely the cries of Hugh Jackman for Logan are silent at this rate. It's probably not going to happen. Another one also is Sam Elliott for The Hero. That's one I saw from earlier this year. And, no doubt that, he did as well as he could in that role, but it was just not that great a movie. So, and that definitely hurts him. And then, we did mention it also. There was, at the Gotham Awards, it was Harry Dean Stanton for Lucky. That posthumous nomination, kind of the in memory of kind of nomination. Of course, we've seen it happen with, like Heath Ledger and a couple other ones there recently, but it doesn't always work. And especially if the category is already crowded enough as it is, then it gets really tough. Okay, you ready? Let's get into Best Actress. All right, so I do think the gal who's going to take up that frontrunner spot, though, is going to be Sally Hawkins for The Shape of Water. At least from the trailers and everything, she looks phenomenal, and she's been nominated for, is it 1 or 2 Oscars before? But Blue Jasmine was a performance I was glad to see nominated. She was great in that. Then we get into Frances McDormand in second place for 3 Billboards, Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird. I do have Meryl Streep getting in for The Post. Again, arguably, from what I've heard, her role might be one of a supporting, but we'll see. And Jessica Chastain for Molly's Game in 5th place. But here we go. Judi Dench, Victoria and Abdul. I've seen that one. And yeah, Judi Dench is a classic. She always does a great job. And it's one, she's got all the critical scenes you need to get nominated there. She gets her comedic scene. She gets her dramatic scene. She gets the great speech scene where she kind of gets in people's faces. She gets the dying scene. It's not much of a spoiler. I think it's pretty obvious from the trailers. But she gets everything you need to be a nominee. She plays a real person, and so on and so forth. She's in costume, and I think she does have on a little makeup, and I think actually she did gain a little weight for the role as well, because Queen Victoria, by the end of her days, was a little overweight. So they definitely play that up in the movie too. That's one. Everything could work out, and she could sneak into one of those slots. We'll see here, and we'll see where it goes. Because I don't know, I can't remember right now if it's in the comedy race or if it's in the drama race of the Globes. But maybe if she wins that, whichever race she's in, if she happens to win, that would definitely boost her. All right, mentioned Kate Winslet, Wonder Wheel. We'll see about that one. Margot Robbie for I, Tonya. Emma Stone, Battle of the Sexes is another one I've seen. I think I mentioned there. But yeah, Steve Carell is currently campaigning in the lead category for that, which I think is a mistake. He's really a supporting character there. And even though, he's obviously the most important male role in the movie, for sure. But he's really scattershot in the first half of the movie. I mean, he gets, some, his key scenes and stuff. And, he gives a good performance. But he's really most important in the back half of the movie when they actually get to some of the tennis stuff. Because when he's just doing stuff where he's, kind of playing up the gambler bit of the character of Bobby Riggs, it's really a supporting character, and it's Emma's movie. It's Emma Stone's movie for playing Billie Jean King. And, I thought she did a great job. And again, they she has just about everything you need, except she didn't really have a big yelling moment or a big dramatic moment like that. She does have a nice crying scene, or actually one or two good crying scenes, and a couple good pillow talk scenes, which are, again, it's something that happens that can definitely boost your potential to be nominated. And again, she does give a good performance, but I think definitely her winning last year definitely hurt her. If somebody like Isabelle Huppert had won last year, or if Natalie Portman had gone all the way for Best Actress last year, then maybe the discussion would be harder to say, let's get Emma in again and see if we can give her that trophy this time. Okay, then we've also got Annette Bening for Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. That one has lost a little bit of steam here, but we can never really discount Annette Bening. Even somebody like Jennifer Lawrence in Mother, I know a lot of people didn't like the movie, but she's got her fans, and there are fans in the movie Mother, so we'll see if that extends into the Academy as well. And then one I'll pick out here. Again, it could be something that happens it's something that's brought up once and then doesn't actually happen, but we'll see about this one. Is Michelle Williams in it's Ridley Scott's new movie, which is All the Money in the World, which is the John Paul Getty kidnapping movie. And at least from the first trailer, it looked like it would be an okay movie and everything. Michelle Williams, she'll be in the lead actress for that. But even though, a lot of the attention is on Kevin Spacey for that role as J. Paul Getty, senior or the first or whatever you would call it, the most famous one and the rich one. Even though, a lot of the attention is on him, she'll be lead actress and everything. So we'll see what happens with that one. But of course, she got in last year. Okay, let's move on to supporting actor. Willem Dafoe, again, I think no problem. He'll be the front-runner status here very shortly. Armie Hammer for Call Me By Your Name. I also have Michael Stuhlbarg for Call Me By Your Name in there. That's a bit of a risk. I'll acknowledge it. Because it's been, the years keep going now since we're farther away now from The Help, the last film, to get two actors in the same movie nominated in the same slot. In that case, it was supporting actress. I do have Sam Rockwell in for Three Billboards, and Ray Romano I still have in for The Big Sick. It's kind of a whim thing there. But he and Holly Hunter, who I do have getting in for The Big Sick, I actually put her out in front. They are so good together. And again, I would pay to see a separate movie of just those two characters. It would be terrific. But one, at least again from the trailer, looks like he's doing a good job, is Richard Jenkins for The Shape of Water. He's, he's got a history with the Academy. He got nominated for The Visitor, and again, he looks like he's giving a good performance there. Also, from that movie is Michael Shannon. He's definitely looks like the more villainous character there. We've also got some people shouting out Ben Mendelsohn for Darkest Hour, playing the same role I believe that Colin Firth won his Oscar for King's Speech as King George VI. And we've got what was the other one I was going to mention here? I forgot what it was. Well, yeah, we mentioned Harrison Ford. I don't think that's happening. If he couldn't get in for Force Awakens, I doubt he gets in for that. But yeah, Kevin Spacey would be the other one there for All the Money in the World. Yeah, he's got, again, kind of like Gary Oldman this year, he's got like 60 pounds of makeup on. Sometimes that gets you in. But yeah, we'll see what happens here. Yeah, so for supporting actress, this is the most fluid race, or the race I think that has the most possibility of open slots here. So I do have Holly Hunter out front still. I might bump her because Laurie Metcalf in Lady Bird definitely looks like she's going to be a big contender here. Then Allison Janney for Itonia, surprising. This is like one of the queens of the Emmys here is Allison Janney, but she's never been nominated at the Oscars. I think that's going to change with this one. Another thing too we've seen before is something like Wild a couple of years ago, where Reese Witherspoon was so good in the movie, and then Laura Dern also played. She was the supporting actress there in that one. And even though early on a lot of people were betting on her, she didn't get nominated everywhere. I think she missed everywhere except one of the different one. I can't remember which one it was, but she didn't get nominated practically anywhere. And then she landed on the list Oscar morning for supporting actress. So that could be the case where Itonia does that with Margot Robbie in the lead category as well. But then again, I think last year we had Meryl Streep for what was the movie she did last year? I can't even think of it now. But the one and I can't think of the guy now. Hugh Grant was in it too, and he was nominated everywhere. She was nominated everywhere, and they, their characters on screen in the movie, whose name I'm forgetting now. She was the singer. She was a really bad singer. But yeah, those two characters kind of went together, and I felt, when I was watching the movie, I'm like, well, you can't nominate her and not nominate him, and vice versa. But ended up Hugh Grant missed out. So yeah, we'll see what happens here. But and again, the competitiveness of that Best Actress category is going to be tough. I do have Kristen Scott Thomas getting in for Darkest Hour. From what I've heard, she's not actually a big crucial part of the movie, but we'll see. And then in fifth place, I do have Jennifer Connelly getting in for Only the Brave. Again, it just opened on Friday here, so if you haven't seen it, I would say go out and see it. It's one of the best films of the year. Let's see. As far as the other contenders here, I know a lot of people are shouting for Melissa Leo in Novitiate. I haven't seen any news on that. Some people say Octavia Spencer for The Shape of Water. From the trailers, at least, looks like she doesn't get much to do, but arguably the same thing happened in Hidden Figures, and she got nominated there. Michelle Pfeiffer in Mother, and I have seen that one. I actually was not very impressed with her performance there. I mean, she did good. I mean, and she's always great. She's one of the, she's one of the greats for sure. But that one didn't really stand out for me. We'll see if Claire Foy is going supporting for Breathe, kind of the opposite of Eddie Redmayne's movie Theory of Everything, where Felicity Jones went lead. And yeah, she probably was the lead character there for sure, but arguably she could have gotten some better ground there in supporting actress. But I forget who won that. Oh, it was Patricia Arquette. So she wasn't going to win, but she could have gotten some more votes for sure. But still, the notoriety of Best Actress, I think, weighed out there. And then, yeah, with this one, at least from the trailers and everything, she does look like she's in that same kind of position there. But evidently, she's supporting, or she's going for supporting, which might get her in. Another one, kind of out there kind of pick is Sarah Paulson for The Post. Again, she's been one she gets nominated practically every year at the Emmys or Golden Globes for all her TV work. So it might be one where the Academy says, hey, come over and join our party too. We kind of saw that with Bryan Cranston with Trumbo a couple years ago. But that was all. It was a good performance too, for sure. Okay, now for the screenplay categories, let's start with the empty one, adapted screenplay. Call Me by Your Name, I think, again, will easily take up the frontrunner spot here. Last Flag Flying will be in the adapted category. I have that in second place. Molly's Game in third. The Disaster Artist I have in for fourth place. And in fifth place, I have Only the Brave. But otherwise, again, Mudbound is an adapted screenplay. That one, if it gets in and if the voters go for it, that could be one that even I don't know if it'll overtake Call Me by Your Name, but it could definitely get a slot there. Another one, too, is Stronger. I actually like the script for that one quite a bit. It's not really one that's gotten a lot of critical praise, but it's one to consider there. And also, Victoria and Abdul is an adapted screenplay as well. That's one to consider there as well. All right, next up, original screenplay. Okay, so here we go. So we have, for my five, I have The Post in first place, Lady Bird in second, The Florida Project in third, Darkest Hour in fourth place, and The Shape of Water in fifth place. Boy, that's tight. And then when we look at the other potential nominees here, get ready. Get Out, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, The Big Sick, Downsizing, Phantom Thread, potentially Dunkirk, and then Baby Driver's another one too. One of the year's better movies, but might be losing steam here. Wind River was a great script. A lot of great, memorable, quippy dialogue there. I would love to see Taylor Sheridan get nominated again for that. And there was one more I was going to bring up. I, Tonya is also in the original screenplay race. Roman J. Israel Esquire, is in the original screenplay race. Logan Lucky. That's what it is. Yeah, Logan Lucky is one. We don't know who wrote it. It was never. I don't think it was ever announced because the screenwriter listed was a pen name, presumably with Soderbergh. But great screenplay there too. So yeah, mention those here. Okay, yeah, let's get into a little bit of a discussion here. I know we're kind of running long here, so let's get into some of the technical categories as far as some potential early frontrunners here when we get to November. I've mentioned it already, but I think Blade Runner 2049 for Roger Deakins, he'll get his due, hopefully, with that one. And then I do think something like Dunkirk, Shape of Water, Darkest Hour are good bets as well. And then I'm putting The Post in because it's Janusz Kaminski, who's always the standard DP for Spielberg. He always does a great job. So he's definitely one to consider there. I've also heard actually Wonder Wheel's cinematography. I don't know who the cinematographer was. Let me look it up here. Might convince me to put it in. So I haven't looked up much on this. I saw the preview for it, but it didn't really catch my fancy. It didn't even look all that great for Kate Winslet from the trailer, at least, or it looked more standard, I guess. It's Vittorio Storaro. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, this is the guy. He did Apocalypse Now, Reds, The Last Emperor, a couple other ones here. But this is the first one. He's been doing a few Woody Allen projects before, but yeah, he's got a nice history of the Academy there. So yeah, that one makes sense. We'll see if that one gets in. But also Call Me By Your Name is one I've heard some people think will get in for cinematography. We'll see. Costume design, again, you basically just throw in any period project, it's got a shot. So at this point, fantasy films too is another one to consider. Definitely helped out the Harry Potter film last time. Beauty and the Beast, I have as number one, then The Greatest Showman, Darkest Hour, Shape of Water, and then Phantom Thread in fifth place. And since that one is about the 50s fashion kind of thing, I think that will definitely benefit there. Victoria and Abdul is another period piece. Dunkirk, it'll have all the army outfits and stuff. The Beguiled from Sofia Coppola earlier this year, that's one. Actually, the costumes look like it was a big possibility. Mudbound is another period piece. The Post potentially could get in there for some costume love. Yeah, there's a couple other ones to consider there. Film editing, I mentioned it already, but Dunkirk I actually do have up front to win this, even though I think the editing was, when it was actually editing like the action sequences and stuff, yeah, then it's beautifully done. But when it's actually like jumping from place to place, then it gets a little messy. But I have that in first, followed by Shape of Water, then The Post. Again, Michael Kahn, standard Spielberg editor, he usually gets in. Darkest Hour I have in there, and I'm throwing in The Florida Project as well. One thing, Blade Runner, again, evidently some very nice editing here. As I've heard a lot of people say, yeah, it's very well edited film. So we'll see here. But then, what else are people saying? Well, of course, if Three Billboards gets a lot of love in more categories than we're thinking, that could get in. Of course, Call Me By Your Name could get in. Lady Bird, I've heard some people say could get in. So, yeah, definitely some more to consider there. Let's see. As far as production design, we're also thinking probably Beauty and the Beast will be a big threat there. Definitely Shape of Water. The Post, potentially. I think it's Rick Carter again. He always works with Spielberg. He usually gets nominated. He even won for Lincoln in a arguably a film that it's looks great and everything, but arguably was not very much in the competition there. Let's see here. I mentioned those two. Dunkirk, yeah, that could get in easily. The Beguiled again could be something to consider there. Darkest Hour probably. A few others there as well. Let's see. When we get into stuff like visual effects, that's one too to consider there. Well, War for the Planet of the Apes, for my money, is the best effects of the year. The best we've ever gotten as far as motion capture. Those are the most convincing effects with all the apes and stuff. Looks terrific. We've also got Only the Brave was another recent one. It's got a lot of the fires and forest fire fighting and stuff. A lot of the effects work in that. So it kind of reminds me of last year when the Mark Wahlberg one got in. Not Lone Survivor, the other one. The one where he's on the oil rig, which name escapes me. That got in for visual effects, so I think that's definitely one to consider. Of course, Star Wars and Blade Runner. Let's see. I don't think Beauty and the Beast is going to get in. Those effects, I don't think worked. Not for me, at least. So we'll see there. Shape of Water could actually be a dark horse contender there as well. I know it's not going to be the most in-your-face effects, at least when it's not the creature scenes. But that could be one like The Revenant or The Martian or even Mad Max from a couple of years ago that gets into that category and wins. Even could overcome all the other ones just because it's a Best Picture nominee. We saw that happen with like Hugo and a couple other ones there. So those are definitely ones to consider. Marvel films, we got Guardians, we got Thor, Spider-Man even. Those are ones to consider there as well. And then the sound categories, yeah, pretty much it's going to be Blade Runner versus Dunkirk in those. Definitely Dunkirk, I think, will have the advantage. Star Wars, never discount Star Wars there. Darkest Hour, I don't know if we get into actual battle scenes in Darkest Hour. I haven't seen the movie, but if it does, then yeah, that could be a possibility. What else? I don't know if Shape of Water would be in those or not. Probably not those. Probably not The Post. I don't know what else could get into the sound categories. Again, it's pretty much going to be Dunkirk for those. And then one more we'll mention here is makeup and hairstyling. I have The Darkest Hour up front. Now, of course, oh my God, this category. Oh, I mean, the voting branch in this are such losers. They always nominate like the films that have like maybe 2 seconds of makeup, and then all the stuff that actually is hard work and makeup, with the exception of maybe Mad Max from a couple years ago. And some people will argue Suicide Squad, but anyways. With those exceptions, it's like every film that wins is one that has very minimal makeup, like Dallas Buyers Club, was a memorable one that did that. There's a couple other ones, but they're not coming to mind yet. Anyway, so sometimes they go for the over-the-top extravagant ones, which is something like Darkest Hour, and All the Money in the World is another one to consider. Shape of Water could get in for that as well. I know some people are saying Beauty and the Beast has a good shot of this. I don't think so. I think a lot of the effects, again, don't really work. And as far as like makeup, it's like the Beast is all CG. It's not makeup. So, yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, we had the first one got into makeup, so that could happen. Wonder, this is one with Jacob Tremblay where he gets it's basically like Mask. It's like a new version of that with Eric Stoltz, if you remember that one. So yeah, that one won Best Makeup that year. So we'll see if maybe Wonder has the same luck there. So that's pretty much all I got to talk about on the Oscars. I know we said we were going to get to the Golden Globe stuff. We've been here over an hour, so I'm going to cut it off there. But yeah, we've got some exciting times ahead. We'll get into the frontrunner status in November. I don't have the list yet for what's happening at AFI Fest, but as soon as that happens, as soon as the list comes out, we'll discuss that. I think actually All the Money in the World I've heard is going to be there. Mudbound I've heard is going to be the opening film. I do know that. I would presume something like Call Me by Your Name and maybe Shape of Water would play there as well. We'll see if The Post is ready. Maybe The Post would premiere. That'd be a good place to premiere it for sure. I'm trying to think what else, because a lot of the other ones like Lady Bird, Last Flag Flying, a lot of those November releases will have already opened. So unless they want to do an extra screening of it, which doesn't normally happen, I think Darkest Hour will have opened by then, or it's the next week or something. So I think that one won't play. But yeah, that one, it's always interesting to see because we had like Rules Don't Apply last year, which ended up getting next to nothing through the Oscars season. But we get some high caliber kind of films there. And I didn't mention it too much today, but Murder on the Orient Express is one. The trailers keep impressing me, but I don't know how well it's going to do at the Oscars. But they do like Kenneth Branagh. He got nominated a few times through his career for acting and also for directing for Henry V back in the day. So, yeah, I'm going to close it off for now. So, yeah, we'll be back for sure in November talking about stuff when we get to early frontrunners. I'll give you a few updates as they happen, as I decide other stuff, and as I go on these other tangents and stuff and see what happens. But yeah, that's going to be it for now.